I wish somebody would have told me part 2. You hear the horror stories, people talk about the pain and how they just couldn't do it. It's like every time you go to latch your baby on, you're clenching your ass cheeks together because you know it's going to hurt. So here I am, 15, just gave birth, trying to get my baby to latch, feeling like he has a good latch, talked to the lactation counselor, went to WIC and had all the help I needed, felt really positive, the baby's gaining weight, till I noticed the latch was not so good. My nipples started to turn black at the base and white at the tip. That's a signal for bad blood flow. There's no blood flow getting through the nipples. That's a dead nipple and dead tissue. I latched my baby boy on, he's nursing, and he stops. I'm looking down, he's kind of choking. My nipple broke off, and he had it in his mouth. I start to panic, I start to freak out. I don't know what the hell is going on. Luckily, I was with my mom and my sister, and they're like, hurry, let's get the nipple and put it back on. I rinsed the nipple off in water, and I put it back on. I called the advice nurse. They told me if the nipple is still alive and has enough blood flow in it, that it can actually reattach itself and to keep that Band-Aid on. That's what I did. My nipple's not perfect today, but it's still here. That was the last day I ever breastfed that child. I will never breastfeed again. Where I heard breastfeeding was painful and hard to adjust to, I never knew that my nipple could actually detach. I'm getting so many comments, and I just wanted to make a video to kind of give a little story time and give a little bit of background leading up to my nipple falling off. There's also a lot of people saying that they would never want to breastfeed or they'd like to quit breastfeeding now, but please do not let my experience be your determining factor to not have kids or to not breastfeed. This happened to me, and I have still successfully breastfed 3 babies. There were people questioning when I said 15. I was 15 when this happened. I'm 32 now. My son is almost 18. Yes, I know that's extremely young to be having kids, but that's not what this video was about. There are nurses or like medical personnel saying that they've never heard of this before, or people saying that if you Google it, you can't find anything on this. There's no way to even Google. There's no term for this because it's extremely rare. This is not a condition, and that's the reason why I'm also saying don't let this be your determining factor or fear in breastfeeding, because there's not even a name for this. That's how rare it is. No, I did not feel any pain. And my nipple also had several large cracks in it, but the area that broke off didn't bleed. I didn't even feel pain. There's no pain. Because this was so long ago, we had Google, the internet was around, but we wouldn't like Google stuff or be able to find like someone in the area that can help us. We were calling La Leche League. WIC was available. I had WIC. I got help from WIC, but I didn't have a car to go in to see anybody, and they wouldn't like come to my house, you know? Negligence was all on my own part, but I was a 15-year-old little girl, and I had no idea what I was doing. Where I said that I had all the help that I needed, it was all of the valid help at the time, you know, which has come a long way. This was back when they used to tell us to get a wash rag and scrub our nipples, you know, maybe around like 36 weeks pregnancy and up, to toughen the nipples up. So my nipples were beat to hell, even before the baby was born. They also told me that I could stimulate my nipples in order to go into labor, and I was a week late. So I was stimulating, like rubbing my nipples and being way too aggressive with them even before the baby was born. I had the baby. I got straight to breastfeeding. I knew something was wrong in the hospital, but everyone was encouraging me. And because I was 15, there was a lot of pressure that I felt to prove people wrong and make it seem like I was perfectly fine and I was going to be able to be the super mom, you know, because there was so much doubt on me being a teen mom. I was living with my baby's dad and his family. I had no help, no support, and I was in an extremely abusive relationship. The self-care was not there, and I was extremely depressed. My nipples were very cracked, very abused, very dry. I was letting them air dry. I was using lanolin, but that was not enough. I needed to stop breastfeeding. I kept going. This happened when he was 2 weeks old, and it was when I was visiting my mom. My boobs were rock solid. I'll make a part 2. So I left to visit my mom, and I'm at her house, and I'm feeding the baby, and they're like, wow, your boobs look really bad. They look really, really engorged. Is the baby even latching? Yes, he was. And yes, my nipple had been flapping for days. So it was already detaching, and it was because of the scabbing that was occurring. And then I would let it air dry so it would harden, and then I'd refeed him on there or use lanolin so it was getting softened again. So there was this whole process for days, probably about 10 days, where it was scabbing and I was still nursing him on it and drying out a little bit,
I just wasn't taking care of myself. Like I said, I didn't want to ask for help because I was trying to prove to everybody that I could do it. And being crazy, I was still using the wash rag to toughen them. It was not the brightest star in the sky. So the day that I was visiting my mom, they were like, let us look, let's see it. And I'm like, not yet, but I will. So my sister's kind of massaging my boobs to soften them, and that's where the baby was eating, and that's when everything happened. I was not like screaming. It was not frantic. I didn't even feel it. It was kind of like, oh, like here it is, you know? And the crazy thing is, I was more terrified and more panicked and like, oh my God, what do I do? Because I really wanted to get nipple piercings. I can't believe I'm even saying this because it sounds so crazy. I knew that nipple piercings were out of my future. We're all standing in front of the vanity in the bathroom, and that's where I just popped the nippy out, rinse it in water, and put it back on. And I put a Band-Aid over it. So no, my nipple didn't actually reattach. I wasn't able to save it, but I was hopeful. Advice nurse told me it's just like when you have reconstructive or like a, you know, breast augmentation, they can remove a healthy nipple and put it back on. So it's not uncommon for that to happen. He asked me a series of questions. There was no open, like, sore. It wasn't bleeding. I didn't feel any pain. So the nurse probably didn't think it was that severe. She just told me to leave the Band-Aid on and let my OB know when I go back for my 6-week appointment. So no, it didn't regrow, but I think because I was so young, I continued to grow. So there is a nippy there still. It's small and it's flat, and it still functions because people wanted to know. It's not like what you would imagine, like a clean slice right at the base of the areola or something and like this huge open wound. That's not what it was like. As for the people who want to see the nippy, I cannot show you my nippy, and I did not save the piece that broke off for the few that wanted to buy it. It actually fell off in the shower one day. Just, I don't know, probably a few days after everything happened. It dried off like a piece of beef jerky and it went down the drain. So yeah, that's it. I hope that no one is afraid to breastfeed. And this was just due to me being a complete, I don't know, psycho, apparently.